Hey everybody, Charles for HumbleMechanic.com. Today we're going to be chatting with Jason from Engineering Explained. So we are here at the Humble Mechanic shop, aka my house. Thanks for coming by, man. I appreciate it.
This is awesome. I flew all the way from Oregon just to be here
You
with you.
are the man. You know, normally I call this series Behind the Wrench.
And today I'm behind the wrench.
Today you are actually the first person to literally be behind the wrench.
It's about time someone held a wrench on this show.
Someone has to set the standard, and my man, I am proud to say that it is you.
If anybody's put a lot of man hours into cars, it's this guy.
So Jason, I got to start off by asking you, has anyone ever asked you a really dumb question in an interview?
Yeah, I mean,
so tell us about Engineering Explained.
Okay, so Engineering Explained is a channel that I created in 2011. And basically is a channel that teaches you how cars work. So I stand in front of a whiteboard. It's super thrilling, high-paced, very fast, lots of action.
Riveting,
and I teach about how cars work. Yeah, people definitely say riveting. So that's basically what I do. I also do car reviews now. I've been doing that since 2014, so I throw that in the mix, usually on Sundays. So every Wednesday, Engineering Explained will put out a new video teaching you guys about how cars work.
What's the coolest topic, in your opinion, that you've covered?
The coolest topic which I've covered,
besides the VR6,
that was my
and the DSG video.
VR6 video was my most viewed video for 2015. So
that's
congratulations
awesome.
to you and I, because I was also in it.
Yeah, you were in it a lot.
Yep. So that was a great video. I would say the coolest video probably would be the DSG video was actually really cool. Looking at how a dual clutch Volkswagen transmission work was really cool, so I'll say that's the most epic. And you were in it, so that definitely
that does not hurt
a little bit. Yeah.
You know, I think I've told you that a lot of people in the Volkswagen corporate world use that as a training video for people. So
yeah,
that's a super.
I teach
give you an attaboy for that.
From the newborn to the professional, I teach throughout. Actually, I've had students send me pictures of their classes. And basically their professor just throws on one of my videos.
You know, how do you feel about that? Like, on the one hand, it's super flattering to be, like, in a classroom setting teaching, but on the other hand, do you feel like, what a lazy professor?
Well, it would be cool if the professor, like, slid me a little part of that stipend to hook me up because I'm, doing part of their job.
Sure.
Certainly, they're more credible than I am because they have, like, the PhD status or whatever. But I think it's cool. I think it's cool that it's out there. Usually, the photos, in the photos, the students are all on their phones because it's really boring. But I'm still flattered that it's out there.
So you do a lot of teaching about cars. How did you get into the car world?
Yeah, so like growing up, I was pretty into video games. Not so much anymore, but
I'm going to take this away from you. Say something with it.
Okay, all right. Well, I did like video games growing up, and part of it was that I didn't like racing games, but I tried this game called Project Gotham Racing. And it got me hooked on cars. I loved cars because of Project Gotham Racing. I remember driving the Maserati Grand Sport. It was my favorite car in the game. And from there, and it gives you all the stats and things like that. And I kind of got into the stats, the numbers behind cars. And from there, started reading Motor Trend, watching Top Gear, things like that. And then I went to school for mechanical engineering, not because I was interested in cars, but more so because I sucked at anything that wasn't math related. And so I was like, all right, I'll just do this math-related major. And then it kind of was like, well, you really like cars. And I just kind of dove into it once I started the YouTube channel. And that was like all I put my passion into. So
very cool.
Yeah, that's kind of how it all started. But Project Gotham Racing 3, that's really thrilling, isn't it?
Have you bought like a copy of that where you can keep sealed and sort of hang on your wall?
No, it's probably like a used copy that's in an attic right now. And the Xbox died in a lightning storm, so I can't even play it anymore. But
so you went to school to be a mechanical engineer, which is, I'll be honest, like way above my pay grade as far as especially mathing. How did that training sort of change your view of how cars work and how cars are built?
So like going to school for it, I thought going into it, hey, I was going to learn, all about how cars work. And then I'd come out super knowledgeable about cars. And really, you just do a bunch of math problems. And so
did you have to show your work on all those problems?
You did have to show your work. Yeah, it's unfortunate. But what I kind of took out of it after entering the real world of engineering is that everything is so much more complicated than it seems. And I have a video that I just put out on wheel spacers, and I think that's a great example of it, where people add on a wheel spacer, they'll increase the offset of their wheel, and there's so many things that you're changing when you do that you're not thinking about, and all of those have been taken into consideration when the vehicle was designed.
Right.
And so you've got your scrub radius, you've got your kingpin offset, and you've got all these different parameters that are happening right there that you're just completely changing just by moving it an inch. And so things like that, like suspensions, are the most mythical thing out there. Like, to just think that you can buy a set of coilovers and put it on your car and it's suddenly better, it's just a crazy idea.
You know, you're saying that, I'm looking at the cabbie behind the camera going, I got coilovers and wheel spacers.
I did the same thing. I put coilovers on my Integra, but like, did it improve it? Like, it has less body roll, yes. But I don't know like the shock rebound settings that are necessary. I don't know the spring rates that are necessary for the weight of the car, for its weight distribution. And these are all things that, you know, behind the scenes people are taking into consideration. So I think for me, what it's just given me is an appreciation for something in stock form, just because there's so much thought that goes into it versus, you know, we buy these aftermarket parts, which I love and I'm very into, and I think upgrading your car is awesome, but it's very difficult to find good information of why is this upgrade beneficial, unless it's something as simple as like, the hood is steel, now it's carbon fiber, now it weighs less. Right. And that's like, okay, I get it, less weight's a good thing. Like lighter weight wheels that are still strong, a good thing. Stickier tires, a good thing. That's very simple, but there's other things like suspension components where it's very difficult to know, especially just taking the information from what the web provides, whether or not you're going to get a benefit. And I think that's what's cool about OEM vehicles.
I agree. And they also have to cater to everyone that would be interested in buying that car.
Yes, exactly.
You know, the little old lady that's only going to drive to church, as well as someone that may try and drive the wheels off of it.
So they make sacrifices in the name of both comfort and performance. And in modifying, you have to kind of consider, okay, how can I, if I don't care about comfort, which is fine if you don't, how can I reduce the comfort in order to enhance performance? And that's cool.
And I think coilovers do a great job of that.
Yeah, and it gives you more flexibility. A lot of times you won't have adjustments in ride height or camber or things like that, and you can add in these components that allow you to be flexible with the geometry of the suspension, and you can get benefits from that. Absolutely.
Very cool. I definitely agree, and I think you really nailed it when you said it's a trade-off between, you know, one thing or another, whatever you're trying to modify in your car. And that actually brings me to my next question is, what do you think when someone has a stock car and they want to start modifying, what do you think the best first modification is for a car?
Best first modification. See, this is like, in my mind, without a doubt, the best first modification you could make, but it's super boring because it doesn't look any different, but it's tires. Like, tires are without a doubt the
so let's back that up.
Easiest way.
You have a brand new car.
Yes.
Do you still think upgrading tires is the best first mod?
If what your goal is increased handling for your car, the best thing you can possibly do, yes, even if it's fresh off the lot, is to get the best tires possible for that car. That's the best thing you could do. If you're going to be tracking the car and the brakes aren't quite set up for it, then I would say brakes. And then after you've got tires and brakes, which are going to dramatically improve, you know, handling, and you know, you want to be able to stop, then start getting into power. But that would be the way that I would say you should do it. It's not what I did.
So how would you, if you had to do it all over again on a brand new project car, what would you do?
I would probably, the first thing I'd probably do, just because it's simple, is tune the engine. Get it tuned, add power.
Yeah, you're not going to get more power per dollar you spend.
Right, it's a super cheap way to get significant improvements in horsepower. Other than that, you're actually going to have to get some mechanical components in there that are going to cost a lot in order to make a big difference.
And I think the great thing for you is you don't have to get dirty while you do that. So I know, like, I'd be given the worst time in the world if I didn't ask you this question, because I come from a technician standpoint, and I can't tell you how many times I have said, who the hell would design something like this on a car while I'm trying to fix it? And I know that it's not, well, I like to hope that it's not just engineers out to get technicians. And you come from the other side of it, on the design side and the implementation side.
Briefly in my life, yes, I was on that side.
What problems do engineers face that might lead to a technician having struggles in the field?
So that's a fantastic question. And there definitely are legitimate reasons behind it. Whether or not they're good reasons, preventable reasons, that can be disputed, but there are good reasons. And I'll give my example. When I was working for a forklift company, I came into a project and I was told, hey, you are responsible for the cooling system for this project. And I said, great. Like, you know, well, I didn't really say great because I wasn't that thrilled about it because I didn't know anything about cooling systems. Yeah, I was more like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. But anyways, it was a learning process. But going into it, it was like, all right, well, what space do I have? And they're like, you have this little spot right here. And it's like, well, I need more space than that. And they're like, no. And it's like, well, can I put it here? And they're like, no, the controllers are already there. And it's like, well, why are there already controllers there? Well, this person's already been working on this project. So you have to take it from consideration that someone may just get thrown into this project. They're told, this is what your task is. You know, you have your little team that you can work with, and you're given a ton of constraints from the beginning. And so if you all from the start mesh together and say, here, we'll put all these things in the right, smartest location, it can work out. But it doesn't always work that way. You can get thrown in and say, hey, you have to make it work with these constraints. And that's pretty much what an engineer is always doing. Here's your constraints, solve the problem. And so from my perspective, I put this radiator, it's buried inside of this vehicle. You literally cannot take off the coolant cap unless you remove the battery from the vehicle, which this is like a 4,000-pound battery on this forklift. You have to take that off. You have to remove a metal rail that's holding controllers on, and then you can take the radiator cap off. And it's like, why would you ever put it there? It's like, I don't want it to be there.
So the key would be a satellite radiator.
Yes,
cap.
Exactly. We had that. So we had an additional one, so you could fill it from here, and you don't have to deal with that. But if you had air and you had to flush the system, you might have to get to that. And so from that perspective, it's just, you're always going to have constraints that you have to figure out a way, and people do the best they can.
Right.
But it looks from the outside like, why would they ever do this? But then if you're told, hey, put a radiator in there, and the only place you can put it is right there because everything else is already taken. It's like, well, I'll put it there.
So these tasks are more compartmentalized and then thrown together at the end instead of
at least
sort
that's
of a
how it
group
was
effort.
for me.
Sure.
And this was a new project with a bunch of new hires, and actually the forklift went out to a customer site and they love it. So like, it's good.
So people
like the product.
do love it.
From a serviceability standpoint, it's a nightmare.
Right. And I think that's one thing, the end customer a lot of times doesn't care about. It's sort of the, the repair end of it that they really do care about.
I mean, so the Ford Escape, this is one example I like to bring up because they have like basically a cowl covering the battery, and there's no access panel for the battery. So I'm sure there's some positive lead somewhere if you need to jump start the car, I hope at least. But point is, if you need to replace the battery, you have to remove these panels to get at it. Whereas most cars, it's just literally like you unscrew a nut or two and then you pull it out. And it's like, okay, like someone has to put in significant work just to change a battery. But how often is this done? Once every 3 to 4 years, maybe, like max.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter. Like the customer doesn't care. They'll take it to the dealership. The Ford Escape owner isn't necessarily like the DIYer that cares about battery placement. So it doesn't matter.
I think that I'm cool with all of that until you get to a component that is highly serviceable, like an oil change, and making an oil change something that is done on a regular basis, with a wiring loom that runs right underneath the oil filter, and you have no other alternative but to saturate the wiring loom with engine oil.
And I think the thing to just keep in mind is that like the engineer who put it there probably also thought, this sucks that we have to do this because we're compromising all these things. But, here's 12 other reasons why we can't put it anywhere else.
Right.
Cost, of course, will be a huge one. Could have to do with safety because of structural locations, things like that. So there's always going to be factors which you're probably not going to be thinking about, not you personally, like I wouldn't either, about why is this thing here.
Thank you for that insight, because that is something that, like I said, from a technician standpoint, all we do is damn engineers.
I definitely do the same thing, because when I was working on these forklifts, we'd be out in the shop and I'm thinking like, well, why did they put our controllers here? And it's like, coolant can fall onto our controllers. We don't want this. And it's like, oh, well, there's literally no other space for them.
Jason, you mentioned that you do car reviews now. Out of all the cars that you've driven in these reviews, what's your favorite car that you've driven?
Favorite car that I've driven.
Besides that minivan that you had.
There's two cars that stick out in my mind as my favorite, and I'll say they're my favorite because they were the most fun to drive. And I'm surprised by one of them, Jaguar F-Type R. The only reason I say I'm surprised is because it had a planetary automatic, and usually I think planetary automatics completely destroy any driving experience. This is a ZF 8-speed unit, and it is the best automatic transmission I've ever tested. Super fast, super smooth shifts, even if you're going flat out or if you're just kind of putting around, no big deal. You just want a gear shift, and it does it super smooth, super fast. It also sounds incredible. All-wheel drive, 550 horsepower, supercharged V8. It was just an immense experience. That would probably be my favorite. Second would be the new MX-5. It's an
Oh
absolute
yeah, I remember you telling me
to
about
drive.
that.
Yeah, I call it best car under 50 grand as far as
Wow.
a driving
Nice.
car. Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't cost 50 grand; it costs 25. A lot of people got confused when I said that. It's like, no, it's a $25,000 car, but it's more fun than literally cars twice its price.
Nice.
It's an absolute blast to drive, and it's basically just because it's so lightweight.
Hey guys, it's just me. The interview with Jason got cut a little bit short due to some technological differences. Also, bonus points if you know what movie that's from. But we got the majority of the interview done. Remember to go to YouTube, check out Jason's channel. He teaches all about cars, from really simple stuff to really in-depth stuff. His playlists are organized incredibly well, so you can basically start at the easy stuff and work down to the really detailed, in-depth stuff. So Jason, thank you so very much for coming by the shop. I really appreciate it. You are always welcome here, man. I'm proud to consider you a friend of mine. Maybe next time I get you out, you and I will actually do some car repairs and video that. That should be a good time. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the video up. If you have any questions or comments, please post it in the comments section below. Hey, if you like the video, throw it a thumbs up on YouTube. I always appreciate that. You can also subscribe here on YouTube or on the blog at humblemechanic.com. Also, go to Engineering Explained. If you don't already subscribe to Jason's channel. You can also follow both Jason and I on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You can follow me on the blog at humblemechanic.com. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. I don't have a beer of the day, although I really need one because I was super pissed when I found out that I lost like the last 2.5 minutes of the interview with Jason.